Well, kia ora, good morning everybody. Great to see you all, and thank you for coming out to this great store here in Sylvia Park, and it's going to be an exciting day when it formally opens on the 4th of December. It's a great example of a company, global company, choosing to invest in New Zealand. It's been flagged for some time that it's coming. It's great, and a lot of New Zealanders are excited about it. But again, it underscores why our government's working incredibly hard to get rid of the red tape, to streamline the resource management, to enact fast track, to put investment boost out there, to make the Overseas Investment Act much easier for big companies to navigate, because the benefits are huge. More jobs, economic growth, and that's all good for New Zealand. With that, happy to take your questions. Yes, when I was in the Netherlands back in late June, I met with the owners of most of the IKEA stores around the world, and we spoke about the experience here. This is a project that was started and flagged in 2019, and here we are in 2025 with it due to open. And I just, so I talked about the fact that we're making changes to our Overseas Investment Act to welcome capital here. We're making it, fast track process would be a classic case where a project like this can get approvals within 6 months rather than multiple years, and also talked about our investment boost, our accelerated depreciation program, which they then commented that's a really attractive proposition compared to what they see in other countries around the world. And I think the thing you have to remember is, for a company like IKEA, which has hundreds of stores all around the world, to actually, there's lots of countries that want IKEAs to come to them, lots of cities around the world that want them to come here, and so we have to be competitive, and we have to be really make that process as simple and as easy as possible for them to want to continue to invest in our country. So that's why we're making the changes we are, to make it easier to get things done and built, so that we get the economic growth, so that we get the jobs. But as you're seeing across the country, there are good projects and good investment happening. Whether it's the infrastructure projects we've talked about, the $7 billion worth of projects before Christmas. We've talked about level crossings. We've got a whole bunch of development across the CRL here in Auckland. We've had the ports expansion. You've seen other investments from other multinationals as well. So I know it's been tough in Auckland, but we're seeing a good outlook as we go forward from here.
Talking about the timeline, 2019 to now, is it a bit frustrating to get to that it's been tied up in the red tape that you're talking about?
Well, as a new government coming in, it's one of the single biggest things that we are very fixated and focused on is we have to deal with this Resource Management Act. We've put the defibrillators on our planning system by introducing fast track for exactly this reason, that actually a multinational shouldn't be mucked around with all of the cost and the time that's associated with getting the resource management approvals and consents in place. And so, we want to streamline that. We want to make it fast and easy while also making sure we follow good process. But we want to encourage companies like IKEA to invest even more down the road in New Zealand.
How much has been a tough time?
Sorry, mate. Yes, I'll come to you. Yeah.
You mentioned it being a tough time. How significant is this for the Auckland economy, the Auckland job market, where people are struggling to find jobs, struggling to find that work and that investment? Yeah,
look, as you know, we've gone through the biggest recession we've had in 35 years. We've had a massive hangover from a COVID expenditure plan. It was the second most stimulatory in the world. And so we've dealt with the effects of that in terms of the impact on our debt, but also the impact on the cost of living for New Zealanders. And the last thing that gets impacted on that when you've got high inflation, high interest rates and a recession is unemployment. And so we're peaking now, and we're expected to trend down. But when you see 500 new jobs available to New Zealanders here, well supported, well trained by IKEA's global systems, it's fantastic. When you see some of the other projects that we've talked about in the recent weeks as well coming to fruition. Here's Halter here, a company here, great New Zealand ag tech company, just raised $165 million, has 107 vacant jobs there at the moment. And so there is a real opportunity for us to as we come through this recession, and we've had to deal with the mess of all of that. And I know that's been difficult and tough for New Zealanders. You're certainly seeing growth in the South Island and rural industry and communities and primary industries. Here in our cities, in Auckland and Wellington in particular, it's been more difficult. So, but the outlook is positive. When you see the Westpac Bank come out just 2 weeks, last week to say we're going to be growing faster than Australia over the next 2 years, they're all positive signs.
Minister, in relation to housing and the Auckland draft plan, Mayor of Auckland Wayne Brown says if David Seymour actually wants to be helpful, he should commit to supporting that. Is it a big night levy? Where do you stand on the big night levy idea?
Yeah, if I just take a step back, basically, Auckland Council asked for more flexibility around, its draft plan around housing, and that's what we've sort of supported and delivered for them. Obviously, we really very much support over transport hubs. We want to see a densification, and we've talked a lot about, the CRL, a big investment, but there's a lot of properties above those transport hubs where we want to see apartments, we want to see retail, we want to see a lot lot of growth and development, as we've seen all around the world. I personally think there should be a lot more greenfields opened up across Auckland as well, but ultimately Aucklanders are going to have their say on that plan, and so we want to hear from them as well, and we'll listen to that. Sorry, Adam, sorry. I've said very strongly we've ruled that out over the course of our first term. Yep. Sorry, Adam.
How much do you worry that profits will end up going overseas? And does it worry you at all that 25,000 people were queuing up for jobs here?
Well, again, it's just a symptom of the fact that when you have out of control government spending, as we saw, the second biggest hangover from COVID of any country on earth, that led to high inflation. High inflation creates high interest rates. High interest rates causes a recession. A recession means people lose their jobs. And that's why if you care about New Zealanders, you actually manage an economy incredibly well. And so I know it's been a tough time, but the fact that we have 500 new jobs here, we have a number of other jobs associated with the development projects and the infrastructure builds that are starting to take place. By the time we get to the fourth quarter of this year, October, November, December, we're expected to be growing strongly again, which is really positive and really good. And so this is the reality. We're doing the clean-up job, we're doing the turnaround job, and the sad consequence, exactly as New Zealanders have had to learn, is that when you spend more, when you borrow more, when you tax more, as Labour's prescription is yet again, you end up causing pain and suffering for low and middle income working New Zealanders, and that's not right and it's not fair, and that's why you've got to do the tough decisions and you've got to run the economy well. No, I'm not worried about that at all. I mean, this is a company that, if you think about all of the ancillary businesses, all the tradies, the plumbers, the electricians, the people who are going to be employed in this business, the carpenters, the construction companies, the traffic management, the project management companies, think about all of the ancillary economic activity that happens around a store like IKEA opening here in Auckland. And that creates huge opportunity for our economy. And again, I'd just say, as we've seen over the number of examples over the course of just the last week, when we have foreign investment into New Zealand, that is a good thing because it creates opportunities and jobs and capital and improves the economic productivity of our country, and that's a really positive thing. I spoke earlier in the week, the work that we've done on welcoming active investor visas, holders to New Zealand. We've now got almost $2 billion that we didn't have in the country on April 1st. Those investors have now invested in companies that have ended up actually creating more jobs as a result of that money going in, as we saw with some of those startup companies earlier in the week. So, foreign investment is a critical part of us being able to attract that investment to New Zealand so we can get our infrastructure built, so our local companies can get the capital they need and we can expand into markets and have a lot of activity around those investments as well.
While that is true, and there's been a what does it mean for retailers, New Zealand-owned retailers like Minister?
Well, it'll be more competitive, and that's a good thing. I mean, that's the idea of running a business, is that you build a competitive proposition for your customer, you build an outstanding internal culture, and you generate superior commercial returns. And the best businesses do all three at the same time. And so the fact that New Zealanders will be beneficiaries of that competition is a good thing. And so, yes, it may mean that other competitors have to sharpen up. That's a good thing.
Prime Minister, what do you think of John Key and Helen Clark attending the military parade in Beijing?
Well, look, ultimately that's a decision you have to ask them. They made those decisions, I guess, as independent and private individuals and private citizens.
Were you invited to attend?
No, but we had representation in China with our diplomats, as we did, in Europe with the VE Day commemorations as well.
If you were in that position, though, would you have attended?
No, I've recently been to China. I wouldn't have gone. Yep.
How concerning is it, though, for you to see Xi and Putin all standing side by side?
Well, again, as I said, we're in a very contested world geopolitically at the moment. As we've seen, that's been a constant theme. We're seeing a shift from rules to power. We're seeing a shift from economics to security. We're seeing a shift from sort of efficiency to resilience. They're the big macro trends that are happening in our world. And, I know it's a really more challenging environment, internationally in a geopolitical sense. And that's why we've been positioning New Zealand to say we have an independent foreign policy. We'll act in our own interests. They include defence and security interests as well as economic interests. And increasingly, both those things are linked.
Were you scared by the message
Sorry?
that China projected?
Sorry?
Were you at all sort of cowed by the message that China projected?
Was I what?
Were you at all concerned by the message that China projected yesterday with that parade?
Well, I mean, again, it's not new for me. I mean, we're in a more contested geopolitical world. We're in a multipolar world that's happening across our foreign affairs environment. And the challenge for us is to act in New Zealand's national interests and to chart our own course. And we do that with like-minded friends. We do that with we want to trade with as many people as possible. We want to also make sure New Zealand is safe and secure. And so I think we've done a good job of that over the last 18 months. Sorry, mate.
Foreign policy approach.
Yep.
Do you think that Clark and his attendance
Well, again, I just say they acted as private citizens, and those are decisions that you should direct at them. What I'm saying is New Zealand had representation through our diplomatic corps that was invited to attend. That's no different from how it was in Europe as well. I didn't go to the VE celebrations in Europe, but we had representation there as well. But ultimately, that's a decision for them to say.
And the expert has commented that yes, while they're not acting in a representative for New Zealand, they are still lending their authority to China's regime. Do you think that that is appropriate? Is that a concern for you as a representative for the country?
No, I'm the Prime Minister of New Zealand. I act in New Zealand's national interests. What former Prime Ministers do as private citizens is up to them.
New Zealand First will be discussing its stance on the use of nuclear energy at its party conference this weekend. So with an eye on potential future coalition negotiations, is there any world where National would entertain some level of nuclear energy use in New Zealand?
Oh, look, I don't think so. I think Kiwis are very proud of our non-nuclear position, and I also think you've got to ask some pretty serious questions about we've got some major fault lines and earthquake fault lines in this country as well, and I'm not sure nuclear is our best bet at this point. But what I'd say to you is that we have a huge opportunity to double the amount of renewables. We obviously have to find a fix for the oil and gas shortfall that we have, or gas shortfall that we have, and we're working very hard to make sure we can do that. And so that's really our focus: is double renewables, make sure we have abundant, affordable energy. If you think about our fast track provisions, we've got 30% more generation of electricity with those 22 energy projects that are there. So that's where I think our focus should be.
So do you roll out any policy that allows nuclear energy in New Zealand while you're doing this?
Well, I can't see it happening. There's a lot more for us to do on renewables. There's a lot more for us to do in solving the gas problem.
And just lastly, you're heading to Pacific Islands Forum next week. How do you think this year's meeting will suffer without the presence of dialogue partners?
Look, I think there's still very strong unity within the Pacific Island Forum. So that has, our preference has been to maintain the status quo with dialogue partners being there, as it has been for a number of years. But again, I think there is so much unity in the Pacific Island Forum, and we are wanting that to be a strong body and a body that does get stronger. So that when countries deal with the Pacific region, they come through the Pacific Island Forum. In the same way, when you're dealing with Southeast Asia, you come through ASEAN. So I think we'll be able to work our way through that issue. Yeah. Sorry, Adam.
Maori Queen's coronation, and why hasn't National even sent a delegation?
Well, again, it's a slightly different format this year. There's actually, we've had letters to say that there's no opportunity for party leaders to speak. It's really about Pacific, and it's also about the Queen having her first, chance to talk publicly after the year. I had a fantastic meeting with her one-on-one last week, and so I really enjoyed it. We had a good hour and a half, and just had a great chance to catch up just one-on-one, just privately ourselves. And so she's had a great start, and it's a really special week for her. And so I won't be at Koronehana every year, but I've spent time with the Māori Queen. I've got a lot of time for what she's doing and what her vision is, and I also had a lovely conversation with the Queen Mother as well, just on the passing of Kingi Tuhataitia's anniversary as well, coming up a year as well. So I feel that we've got our relationships in a good place, and that's important. And then we may have National Party MPs coming, but that's not the normal construct that it has been in recent years. Yeah.
Stanford's announced changes to expand deportation rules. It comes on the same day as new statistics showing nearly 21,000 overstayers in New Zealand. Is that a crackdown on overstayers from America's Stanford?
Well, look, it's really important we have legal immigration in New Zealand. I think the numbers have gone from 14,000 in 2017. The estimate today is about 21,000. And just we want to make sure that Immigration New Zealand is doing everything it can to enforce legal migration to New Zealand. The people that feel strongest about this is about our new New Zealanders that have come to New Zealand, followed all the processes, done it right. And we expect people in a culture of rights and responsibilities to uphold the terms of their immigration and their visas.
Has the government got the balance right though? Stanford said that she's prioritising compliance and enforcement, but Immigration New Zealand says the number of overstayers is very small in proportion. Is the balance right there with a crackdown like this?
It's really important on immigration, given you would have seen in other countries around the world that when you don't stand up and defend legal immigration and you end up with illegal immigration, that is something we just want to make sure we've got good, strong enforcement practices around. The reality is that it's really important immigration. New Zealand protects that and upholds that, and that's part of a society that we're building here in New Zealand. Is about rights and responsibilities. If you have a right to come to New Zealand on terms and conditions of your visa, they need to be respected, and you need to honour those obligations.
Prime Minister, last couple of years, Xi Jinping inspired with Kim Jong-un.
What did you make of those comments?
Oh, look, those are for him to make. I mean, as I've said, from my point of view, and I've been talking about this now for almost 2 years, there's no doubt about it. It's a more contested world. It's a more multipolar world. It is shifting from what we call the rules-based system to a power-based system. That is not good, as I've said publicly in forums that I've been part of around the world, at APEC and NATO, to continue to advocate for the international rules-based system, because countries like New Zealand, and I'd just say most countries around the world, have been served incredibly well over the last 70 years by having a rules-based system. And whether it's in trade or whether it's in defence and security, we want to keep advocating strongly for that to be upheld.
Is the United Nations still relevant?
Well, the United Nations has a role to play, but it needs a lot of modernisation to have some real impact. And unfortunately, I think it needs some serious reform. Yep.
Would you
You
support?
said that Clark and he had a sort of an obligation to keep up the engagement, though, despite the fact that it doesn't look good?
We have a very strong and good relationship with China. I mean, it's been a long-standing one for 50 years. I've spent time with President Xi, Premier Li, as you know. We've hosted them here in New Zealand. I've had a successful visit to China. I've had several interactions with President Xi, even in my time as Prime Minister. And we have a very strong relationship, a good relationship. It means that we collaborate where we can. We think there's a lot of opportunity to advance the interests of both our peoples and both our countries. We also acknowledge up front we have differences too. We have different systems, different histories, different values, and a good relationship means you can talk about those things pretty straight up and pretty openly, and that's what we do as well. So I think we've got a very strong, good relationship with China, and we've got a good understanding of each other as well.
Prime Minister, when you say modernising the UN, what would that look like? Would you support some new countries getting permanent seats in the Security Council? What exactly?
Well, it's just. I think over the last 20 years, people have been saying, look, there is some reforms that are needed in the UN. Today's not the day to go into that, but I'm just saying, there's a role for the UN to play. It's an important body, but for it to have currency and to have influence, it needs to be able to reform itself a little bit as well. Okay, sorry. Yes.
New Zealand neo-Nazi Thomas Sewell, he was arrested outside a court in Melbourne on Sunday after a demonstration. There are calls to deport him back to New Zealand. Do you think he should come back? What are your thoughts?
Well, he sounds like a pretty awful human being. And he's an Australian citizen, so I'll let that run its course. Yep. All right. Thanks, guys.